welcome back to the NCMU podcast, where we are dedicated to raising up and equipping the next generation of nerd culture missionaries. My name is Mark, the pastor of Lux Digital Church from outside of Pittsburgh, and I have some awesome people with me today. Bubba.
Allegedly. Yeah.
Allegedly?
Oh, I thought you were going to start with the awesome one.
Well,
you start with me?
No, it's the buildup of suspense. Like everyone's
Got it. Okay.
Because you missed 2 episodes ago. I missed the last episode, and now they were like, oh, a guest is going to come on, and then your voice comes out of the weeds.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think anybody believes that we actually are co-hosting this. I think we're just like oscillating hosts.
Yes.
Back and forth.
Yeah. But yeah, it's me and Bubba. We're back in the digital studio again today. And we're joined by a really awesome and special guest, MmamaLlamaFace. MmamaLlamaFace, thanks for coming on and joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite.
Yeah. Well, here at NCMU, we really like to try to jump in pretty quickly and just dive into the conversation about what has brought people into streaming, who they are, why they're doing it. You know, why are you in the context of like trying to minister to, evangelize to, whatever, people who are in the gaming space. But before we do that, there'll certainly be some people who maybe listen to the podcast that don't know you. So tell us a little about yourself. Let us get to, whatever you feel is important. Let us get to know you a little bit.
So just
look at the book a little bit.
Just little facts about me before I go into the whole like creation journey that I have. I'm a mom of 2 boys. I'm married almost for 7 years now. I'm a reborn again Christian. Just been a gamer kind of my whole life. And God led me into streaming as a way to connect with people through a basic avenue that we can relate on in order to have those deeper conversations about things like God and life.
That's awesome. So you have 2 boys.
Yeah, let's hear a little bit about that. We've got kids. Peter Pan's got kids over here, and so we want to know what your experience in that realm is. You're 7 years married and 2 kids.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was a single
ambitious
mom for 7 years. So my oldest, my husband actually adopted, and that was a whole journey in itself. I was, like I said, single mom for a long time. So I was working between 3 jobs that were all part-time, going to school full-time. Thankfully, my parents supported me a lot through that journey and really encouraged me.
That's awesome.
I faced a lot of problems during that time, trials and tribulations that God was preparing me in order for me to have this journey here today. And I can see that now. But if you had asked me back then, I would have thought that, God was like against me. So, I was very embittered, and, that was part of like my story coming back around again, because I was raised Christian. And, but my faith is so much stronger than it ever has been now, because I went through those really hard times for like over 10 years, through that journey of being a single mom and figuring all that stuff out too. And just finding the value that God actually does have for our life.
Wow.
I
so
think
tell me about your kids.
Yeah.
Like how old are they?
So my oldest, he's 14 and he's in high school, and he's getting his associate's degree while he is in high school. So it's his freshman year.
Bright kid.
He's very smart.
Right? Yeah.
Okay, so he's better than us.
Smart.
Got it.
Yes. Barely got that in college. Yeah, that makes sense.
He's very bright. It's a blessing to have a child that is, so aware of the world. And I do have like the ability to have complex conversations with him over, daily life stuff and what we're facing in today as challenges of this world. So I do appreciate that. My youngest, he is kind of the opposite. He's 5. He loves school. He just started kindergarten. And he doesn't really have like an interest in like reading at this moment. So like the learning of different things, counting numbers, like we were trying to count numbers earlier, and he's like, okay, that's enough.
How far is he getting in his counting?
We counted to 40, and I counted to 50, and then he was like, Kate, that's enough. Like he cut me off.
I don't want it.
We get it, Mom.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have to brag.
To 40.
Right.
It's getting repetitive. I'm literally done with this.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, can you blame him though?
Yeah.
He's the little gamer. So there's a different way to connect with him over that type of stuff. Like my oldest enjoys games too, but he's more like Minecraft, creating types of stuff. So they are different in their own ways, which I do appreciate. It's just learning the differences and figuring out how to speak to them individually. So, yeah, they're both great kids. And then we have 2 dogs, both rescues. One was like rehomed 4 times for her anxiety. And like, she's just had this amazing turnaround. She used to not be able to like be left at home at all. She would like chew out the walls and like all sorts of stuff. So that's, she couldn't go in cars.
Just
so
like kids.
Oh yeah. So like, yeah, just like kids. So, we actually have like another dog that we rescued. He was dumped on the dirt road down the road. So even though he's like a little bit crazy for her, kind of helps bring her out of her shell a bit. So the kids do enjoy bonding with the dogs and, yeah, so.
Well, if your kids would like a 3rd dog, I have a dog that I hate, and I'm willing to leave it in Texas. I'm willing to get rid of it, like drop it anywhere, like anywhere you want me to drive. If there's a dirt road that I can drop my dog on, that you will then take my dog.
Literally right down the road.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, just let me know the dirt road. Just drop like a GPS pin, and I'll just put the dog there.
So the dog that we ended my husband.
You're what we would call a serial pet collector.
Serial pet collector.
Yeah.
It's actually, so I brought in the first one and then my husband went for a run and he found the other one dumped on the road. And then like the dog followed him all the way home. And then I just like look out the window as I was like working and he's just like holding the dog at the window. And I was just like,
wow.
And he was huge already. And I took him to the vet and they're like, he's only 4 months old. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I knew he was a puppy.
Well, that's not what you want to hear.
But he's part he's part Great Dane. So yeah, he's really big.
Part dinosaur, part Great Dane.
Yeah, basically he's part train, I'd say, with how he barrels through everything.
Wow. Yeah, you wouldn't think that's the solution for a dog with anxiety. Is a dog that doesn't know its own body weight. But evidently it works. If it works, it works, right?
Yeah, she stopped chewing at the walls. We can actually like go drop the kids off without having to take her with me, So it's kind of something we've been praying for a long time, I guess you could say, because we were just like, we can't go to the movies as a family. Like we want to go do stuff. So it's like slowly something that's happening, which is kind of nice in its own way.
Yeah, you just got to be a little bit more specific with your prayers. Yeah. Like, hey, God, answer this prayer, but not with a 200-pound animal.
That's where I went wrong.
Yeah,
we learn as we grow. Yeah.
We do. I'll just have to pray about that a little bit more. But we moved out
you just have to be really specific in your prayers.
It's true, though. Yeah. True. Mm-hmm. That's why everyone's like, don't pray for patience because then you're going to get tested a lot. But I'm like, that's like the best way.
That's a specific prayer. That's just a dangerous prayer.
It's dangerous.
Scary. This is real scary. A lot of people early in the faith make very scary prayers. They just don't. They don't understand how scary what they prayed is. Yeah.
They're bringing on themselves in the process.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Faith and patience. Those are 2 things that you just you should never pray for. Just because it's going to happen. You're going to be taught about both of those at some point.
You'll be tested a lot. It's for sure.
People like 1 year into their faith walk and they're like, I don't know why God is letting this happen to me. Like, what did you pray for? I prayed for faith. That is exactly actually why it's happening to you.
You're going to learn today.
Yeah. You're going to be tested. The enemy loves that though. The enemy loves when you are trying to really reach other people with God's word and trying to tear at that person and or their family or like whatever he can disrupt in the mix to bring them away from spreading that light and that, God's word to other people. So I've definitely seen that through the process of doing this like ministry type work. And I think that's where a lot of people don't realize that definitely does happen. And I've known like in churches before I'm not calling myself a pastor, that's for sure, but like it's a ministry type job. So like we try to reach people, we try to, show God's likeness. And so I think whenever you're trying to reflect that in the world, that the enemy wants to try to snuff that out and whatever he can do in the process of, trying to make that happen. Yeah. Like for instance, we moved out here to Texas about 4.5 years ago and all of our family, everybody on mine and my husband's side is still back in California and San Diego. And so we were both born and raised there and we felt like God was leading us out here. And we decided to come out here.
Drive up all of our property taxes. Thanks, Mama Llama. Appreciate you bringing California.
Well, we weren't one of those rich people, like, that moved out here. We didn't have anything.
That's what they all say. Nobody's buying it. That's right.
That happened in my state too, but it was everybody from New York came south for me. So yeah.
Like we tried to buy a house out there, initially, and the bank like literally laughed at us because they were just like, oh, we're not going to give you a loan. Like the most you qualify for is like 100,000 or something like that. And then they were like, you're not going to find anything out here for that. And it's true.
Yeah,
it's definitely
a studio
true.
apartment. Yeah.
Not even that.
If you're lucky. Like a shack.
It's the opportunity to look at a studio apartment.
Yeah, the opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that would be qualified. Maybe to rent, maybe you could rent somewhere. But
well, I tell you what, tell us a little bit about some of your ministry journey. And then also one of the things we really like to tap into here on the show is like the discernment process for, because you uniquely, and you do this full time. Like this is, and you work like crazy hours. It's like mental. It's like not only weird hours, but it's long hours.
Yes.
And so you started on, I think, Twitch. You're streaming on Kick. You got the partnership or certification on Kick. Now, we'd love to hear about all that stuff, but we also want to hear about like that those moments that God moved your heart towards this is not just like a way to get your face out there and try to make some money, but also as an opportunity to be a light in, kind of a dark corner of the internet.
So my intention in streaming in general was never to make money. I, was a stay-at-home mom, and, I've always been very driven for a majority of my life to help people. And initially, like when I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to help animals too. I always had this want to like help people. And, I remember like thinking back through all of the stuff that I did go through. It's definitely part of, I think the discernment was many, many years ago, if that makes sense. So all the trials and stuff, I had to add that up in my head after time had passed to see how God was really like trying to use me in different ways. And how at the time it was really hard, but it opened up a lot of kind of leaps of faith for me to go ahead and take. And I would say initially I started with fashion design. I was going to college for that. I was 6 months away from graduating. I found out a lot of stuff was happening with my oldest son, and not getting into specific details, but I decided, to take psychology, and I wanted to, help him through that. And I wanted to understand, other people and like how the brain works more. And, through that, I still was, kind of jaded in my faith at the time. And so I was kind of like still teetering through stuff. And while I was learning, I did get my psychology degree, my bachelor's. And in time, I came back to my faith, and I realized that a lot of it is, when we experience things like anxiety and depression and sadness. And there were many times like, I've struggled with that a majority of my life. And I think that that's just something that the enemy tries to use in disguise to really just like have this name brand out there of like, oh, this is just a normal thing we all go through. And yeah, it might be, but I think that we also allow him to take those like little footsteps in our life without maybe consciously being aware of it. And so just trying to help people be a little bit more consciously aware before it gets to the, I'm in a really desperate, serious type place right now, because a lot of my testimony is through all of that stuff. I, experienced parts where I had like addiction. I had, different things with that anxiety and depression really getting me down, where I just wanted to end it all. And I always go back. It's a very deep type story, so I'm sorry for that. Yeah. But
no, that's okay.
I tell people how it really was where I came back to my faith because I was going to jump off a parking structure. And the enemy before then was, I was at work, and he was trying to tell me to, hang myself because no one was there. And I clearly remember those things because they were really moving. And I remember getting to the place where I was going to go and talk with somebody like that was provided through my work. And I parked there and it was really high up. And I just remember like looking out and just being like, why even bother? And as I was going towards the edge, I just remember hearing like this really strong, powerful voice, and it really shook me. And it just said, you're going to go and put your back against the wall, and you're going to take the elevator down, and you're going to go and you're going to talk to somebody, and you're going to get through this. And that's really what led me back to my faith. So after that, I got off all of these like antidepressants and like all this other stuff, and found out that I didn't really need them to begin with. And working with God on how to like relinquish all of that over to him and give him that like those weight of my problems that were from a lot of the abuse that I had suffered majority of my life was super important for me, and actually dealing with the problem at the root. And so in all of this, I came to the decision of content creation, obviously years later, because my natural want is to help people realize, and that's my same slogan, is that you have purpose and you're loved, because we all tell ourselves that we're not. And God tells us that we are. And the reason we tell ourselves is that we're not is because we hear those whispers and those lies, and we pave those pathways, if you will, of those negative thoughts without maybe even mentally really realizing it. And once we keep paving those ways, they just, become more natural for us to think in that same process and allow the enemy to keep having a foothold in our life. And once we try to cut him off, it is hard to essentially let, as I've listened to the sermon, like, don't let the enemy have a seat at your table, right? By Louis Giglio. Yeah. He talks about, letting that grass grow over that pathway of that negative thought, like, pave the new pathway of positivity. But that takes work, that takes effort, that takes time. And that's really, really hard for people. And I think with content creation, in this sense, I struggle with making videos, obviously, because I really enjoy engagement with people, just like natural engagement. But it's somewhere people can come and they can feel safe and they can have a positive voice and hear God's word. And when you hear that multiple times per week, then you're able to try to block out some of those negative voices and start paving those pathways of positivity in God's word. Even if, I have a lot of people from different walks of faith, and some are not even Christians. But, they enjoy the devotionals that we do, or, just the likeness of the stream, or people who, haven't been in their faith before have came to their faith because of the stream. And it's really cool to like see how God works. Sorry, just 1 second.
No, that's great. And I think that this is like a really good time to interject with just like a little bit of a question here. Yeah. And so you're using content creation in the way that those of us that are in the space would hope that content creation would be, that it's not just a stage, it's not just a limelight, but it's a tool, it's a way to interact with people and to help, not to judge people, but to spur people on towards, better things. And even if people are not Christians, right? Yes. Which we have a lot of people that come through our communities, whether through asynchronous platforms like Discord or through our live streams, that just flat out are not Christian. Right. But they can sit in the space and be encouraged to seek more. Whether they end up going and read their Bibles or not, it's between them and the Lord. But can you speak about some of the ways that you've been able to do that in your community, and how that in turn helps you, right? Yeah. Because the content creation is not just for other people. You're doing life together with people. You're streaming so much that you're spending so much time with these people who have a real, genuine connection with you. So can you just speak a little bit to that? Like how is that helping them? What's the fruit that you've seen? And also how is that in turn helping you as you pave those new pathways for yourself?
So kind of like backpedal just slightly, because I wanted to go over what you had addressed about, just letting anyone of any kind of thought, like faith wise, come in and feel like encouragement from our communities. And Before when I first originally started out in this, I was, family friendly. I'm not saying that I sit there and I say bad words, but I was family friendly. Like I didn't let people come in and like say certain things. I remember turning away like people, and now in realizing, like I started like a year ago, not being family friendly, being able to just like play random matches with people, because I think that's truly where you can like be a light in any kind of regard. Like somebody you get on that's like super toxic and you just kind of like, try to not be the same exact way they are to you. I think that does speak a lot, and just trying to live and just show like God's likeness. Obviously I'm human, I'm not perfect. But just trying to reflect that in the best way possible, where anybody is welcome. I'm not going to judge you coming in here. This is a safe space. And that's how I feel like every Christian community should be, is come as you are. We're not here to like uphold judgment. We're here to just simply like reflect God's kindness and love and his light. And in the process of doing that, whether you have faith or you don't, maybe you will after like, maybe a month or a few months or like a year, who knows, like everyone's walk is different. And even if they don't at some point, at least they were still like introduced to all of that. And I think that's super important. So I find like a lot of things that I've seen and that I want for like the Christian digital ministry is to have that just come as you are type mentality. Like we're not here to judge you. We're just here to, be that exact, like a safe space that you can come to and have enjoyment. And, like I said, I have a lot of people that are not Christians actually that do join for the devotions and they get something out of it. And I've had others who, had no faith at all, and they're slowly coming to like seeing their faith, or like, questioning things, and they ask me questions and I'm like, hey, I don't know everything, but like I'm always willing to learn more. And, I am very open to having like conversations about all of it too. And so they feel like it's a safe environment. Whereas I feel like, when we go to, and just my own personal experience from like traditional church is like, if you go ask a question, you might be judged, and I think like just having that as it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to maybe not know where you stand and come here wondering, and so sorry, part of the other question you had asked, or part of the other part, was how I receive from all of this too, right? I'd say what I receive from all of it is, it hasn't always been easy, that's for sure. But part of what I receive from all of this is just knowing like maybe in some way I've positively impacted somebody's life by God using me. And that to me is super important. Because everything has been like I said, a leap of faith, like, obviously purchasing a $4,000 PC, and all like, and equipment starting up it's not something I got into this for money. I just, was like, this is something I want to do and something I feel led to do, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. And God's just kind of like, he's just blessed that the whole time in that regard. And, there have definitely been times where I've been like, is this the right move? Like I'm nervous, I don't know if, for instance, moving over to a different platform entirely, like I risked everything.
That was brave.
And I prayed about it for a long time. And, there are still some people who have turned away from me because I went over there, and maybe looked at it more as a platform rather than the streamer trying to make a difference on the platform. And I think that some of the darkest places are the best places to stream, because that's exactly what we're supposed to do. And I'm there for the right reasons, regardless of whatever, might be out there. Like I kind of talked with Dudetacular and Freeman about that. I said, if there was a Christian platform, why would we, want to maybe just stream to that only? Like we wouldn't. We would want to reach people and who are not of just the Christian mindset. Like that's the whole goal in general, is to reach people who are not of just the same mindset. And that's why all of it is kind of led up, like the not being family friendly, like all of that stuff has just been building and God's just been developing as time goes. So,
there's a whole other podcast there about platforms and the people who are sitting on Twitch being like, how dare you go to Kick? Don't you know it's full of debauchery? It's like the pot calling the kettle black. Why don't you just click on 3 recommended streams on Twitch and you tell me that's the safe. You're telling me Twitch is a safe place, right?
Yeah.
That's the place on the internet we want to send all the kids
through the roof.
Yeah. Okay. So the hypocrisy amongst the community of, well, you're just in a place that I'm unfamiliar with, so I'm going to tell you you're evil because of it.
Or this is gambling. It's supported by gambling, so you're therefore bad and because you're associated with it, or you're just here for the money because it's a 95.
They go out and buy Pokemon cards after that,
I've heard everything. So, or like even the chat stuff isn't as user friendly, and I'm just like, but I felt like I reached this point on Twitch where I had the same people just cycling through the same Christian communities, and I just
we don't know anything about that, so
we know all about that.
I just felt like the outreach wasn't there. I wasn't having new interactions with people who were trying to find God. And I prayed about that a lot, for months before I even transferred over. Like I made my account in March over on Kick. I didn't switch over till June, at the end of June. And so I don't make any decisions hastily. It just is something that I think, in general, God just uses you how he's going to use you, and all you can do is just support that in the best way possible. And if people are going to talk about it, then they're going to talk about it, but at least you know where you're right with God. So yeah.
Being real, that 95.5, like that should be something that people who champion you want.
Right.
Like, oh, hey, instead of 50%, now you get 95%. That should make them feel better about their money and where it goes, And I feel like that's better for my community too. Like they're not having to put out as much to support me how they want to. Bingo.
And so therefore it's kind of better all around, maybe the stuff on Kick with their chat and like trying to figure out different things. And it's still a developing platform. Like it hasn't been around for that long. I understand all of that, and I'm being patient with all of it too. But it is hard because I know like it is also a lot of streamers streaming to like other, possible like streamers or, that type of thing. And so, but hey, at least that's still something where you might be able to encourage somebody in their content, so.
Well, listen, to be honest, I've been on Kick. I've watched you and Susie streaming over there. And, I think the platform by and large is great considering they don't have those Bezos bucks flowing through it and like a virtual limitless budget. And so, I'm not in the inner workings of Twitch. And of course, our church exists primarily on that platform. However, hey, I got an email. I got an email from Kick months and months ago and checked out their platform and dabbled around there. And so I think it's awesome that you're there, and the concept of saying like, hey, as like if we're church planting, right? We don't get around and be like, you know what, the inner city's too dangerous. Yeah. It's too dark of a place. We shouldn't put churches there.
Exactly.
It's too dangerous. It's like, no, we go there. We don't we don't gather our missionaries together and be like, you know what, the ones who go to Paris, we applaud them. Yeah. But the ones who go to like India, no, we're Calcutta. No, you guys are in the wrong for going to a dangerous place full of people who don't believe like you.
Right.
You're a terrible missionary. No, we call them missionaries because of that. Like that's the point. Like that's the whole point. And so you come into the place like, oh my gosh, you're a great digital missionary and we love the content that you're doing and thank you for doing this. And then you decide to go to the place where the people are that you're being sent to reach. And then people are like, how dare you do what missionaries do, you missionary? Preposterous.
It's awful of you.
So, what a terrible
well, and it doesn't hurt at all, Mama Llama, that you are absolutely cracked out of your mind at Fortnite.
Yes.
That's
I popped in the other night, Mark, and I was like, hey, don't mind me just doing a little bit of research here for a podcast. And I can't build for beans in that game. And so like I made a solemn promise that when no build came, I was going to play all the time. I just haven't. But it made me really excited because it was taking out the most difficult part of the game for obvious reasons. And I'm just watching you go, hey, watch this. Like you're talking to your partner, like, hey, watch this. I need my shotgun back. Watch this. And just, it was
murking
baffling. But it reminded me why people watch streamers. Like I'm thinking, ain't nobody trying to watch Bubba play Fortnite. Like that's a waste of time. But I'm serious. But like watching like, somebody who is skilled in the thing, it's the same basic concept as watching professional athletes in any other sport play a game when you could just go outside and toss the pigskin around.
That makes sense.
And so can like speak a little bit about how Fortnite became like a piece, like an integral piece of the ministry that you do online.
So I like the game in general just because it's not like gory, I think that is really, I mean, obviously like I would play something like Call of Duty too. I've played Call of Duty. I don't really think it's like gory, but it is a little bit more. And because I think there's like a whole community on there too that you could definitely reach. But on Fortnite in general, I think that how I got into it was my husband's brother had, when Fortnite like first came out, we had just had our son, and because he's 5, and I've been playing the game for 5 years. And so when it first came out, I would watch my husband play it, and he only tried it like a couple of times in the very beginning. I think it was like season 3, and the game just looked like so basic, at the time. And he was like, I don't know about that game. And I was like, I really liked watching you play it because like I was taking care of the baby. And so I would just like be taking care of him and like be watching him. And it was just something like entertaining for me. And eventually when my husband, he went over to go like be in the Navy. He's not right now. So I just so you guys know, but he went to go do that. And he came back like after boot camp type thing. He had an Xbox for me, and I was like, oh, perfect. That's great. And so I made my username, and I thought of it a while ago. I was like, MmamaLlamaFace, like Emperor's New Groove. I like that. Plus like I'm a mom.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah, we like Emperor's New Groove. Yeah.
That's the perfect reference for that.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was Fortnite, if I'm being honest with you.
It has nothing to do with Fortnite, which is funny because I could see how it would be because like llamas and they're in the game. But like I created my name from the Emperor's New Groove movie, and I started playing Fortnite, and I was on controller, and I was awful, and I still love building, and I would just scream like while I'm playing the game because like it's terrifying, like you don't know what you're doing. So I didn't get to play very much, but I once we moved out here and like got our own house and stuff, like my husband and I would play side by side together. And initially he was going to stream, and he just didn't feel like led to do that or like the passion for that. And after a while I was just like, with everything I've done and like how I've always wanted to help people and stuff, like I think that would be a really great thing for me to do, and felt very led to do that. And so Fortnite was just something I had initially been playing. And like I said, from like my early clips, like I was on PC, but on controller, and initially decided to switch over to Azeron, which is like a different keyboard and mouse. And I taught myself while streaming how to play on that. So I was learning, I only learned it like a little over, I think it was like a year and a half ago at this point. So yeah, even though I've been playing the game for 5 years.
Real briefly, explain Azeron to the uninitiated.
So
like me who has no idea what it is. Yeah.
So
this guy,
like this thing is wild.
Yes, it looks like this, and this is my keyboard. And so each of these are my binds, and I've like created them all. Like you can map them out yourself. And so each click of this, like I put my hand in here, and then as I'm like, playing, I have these different ones that do different things, and you don't look at it, and you're just,
So for everybody who's listening to audio, this looks like something out of Edward Scissorhands, just for the record.
Yeah.
Like she's showing us.
You put your hand inside of another hand.
Like it's like something from like a robotic Wolverine
like,
claw or something that she plays with. Yeah. Wild. I've seen those things like on the internet, and I was like, that's not a thing. No one does that, right?
Yeah.
No.
So I mean, I've
Only
obviously
the pros, my guy.
This thing has been used to death, but this is what I taught myself on. I initially started on a classic, which had like a couple less, 7 less binds. It doesn't have these 2 towers over here on the side, and it doesn't have this whole row back here of binds. And so, basically I learned on the other one, and then upgrading to this, I also had to teach myself this one. And so that was a whole nother type of thing too.
Do you type with it?
No.
Like, is that your daily driver? Oh, come on, Mama Llama. You got this. We believe in you.
I don't know. I don't know exactly, like, because like I said, the software that I have for it, like you can map out all the keys and assign what key it is to what like little, these things are like you flick them back or like forward. And so they can have like A, B, like the whole alphabet or numbers, whatever you put to it. I just don't know exactly like the order. I just know like what that key does in my game.
Well, listen,
I love that.
Really impressive. Really, really impressive.
Thank you.
I have a feeling that we'll be cycling back to a handful of folks over the next year, because I actually have questions. We're not going to get into it today, but I have questions around, we've talked to a couple of people who were female in the space, and I think that has probably some positives and negatives.
Yes.
And I'm not a woman, so I don't know what it's like to be in this space that is growing to become more and more equal in terms of men and women who are gamers, who are on Twitch, that sort of thing. But I think the experiences are vastly different.
Yes.
As a content creator. And I think that's a really good, longer conversation for another day. So
for sure,
we definitely want to tap on that eventually. But I also just, with every person that we have on the show, we like to close by asking them, what is it that you wish you knew back when you started? Like if there's one thing that MmamaLlamaFace today could grab MmamaLlamaFace of, I decided that I was led to streaming and I grabbed my controller and we set up a Twitch account and I started. What is the one thing you wish you knew then, or you would go back and tell yourself when you started that you know today?
So there's like a couple of things I thought of with that. Part of it's like the sacrifices that I've had to make with my kids and being a mom. And I think that's relevant with any job that you take on as a mother. But when I was streaming, like I just recently tried changing my schedule over to days, and it's still been kind of hectic. Like I haven't mastered it yet. And so, because been battling like my kids being sick and like all this other stuff too, along with it. And so, I still don't have anything like firm, but when I was doing overnights, like not being able to like tuck my kids in for bed, or, I needed to be getting ready and come in here. And then I would be up like the whole night. And then like, I take them to school in the morning and, try to go about my stuff. Like it does have an effect, and it does really wear on you, like mentally. And just like knowing that that's okay, and it's okay to be human. Because I think that at times I would get on myself about that type of stuff and just be like, well, you could be a better mom. You should be, doing this instead of this. And, so that was really kind of like an internal battle for a while. And, I also would say with things is like, you're going to have anybody come into your chat and try to get a rise out of you. Right. And I think that kind of does tie in to what Mark said about being a woman creator though. And, I think like women are very much more targeted in this kind of industry than a man might be. In the sense of like I'm not saying that they're not at all, but like I, on a daily basis, have people come into my streams and, tell me like awful things, like either if it's like super raunchy, or if it's like on the end of, just like completely harassing me, just letting myself know that their words are just words, and it doesn't define me, who I actually am, and how God sees me. So, it doesn't actually have any weight. And now, like, when somebody comes in and does that, I just laugh at them. So I just, like, if they just keep at it, I'm just like, it's, you know, I will be a light here and I will be a light to you. But at the same time, like, I don't think that necessarily negates, like, you have to, I guess, be like, not, I guess, a pushover, I guess it would be the word for it. So still, like, having that face and knowing, like, hey, I do have ground here and this is my community and this is my home. And this is, like, what I let in also that can affect my community. And so, like, being aware of that is super important.
Yeah. And I think that some of the insecurity that is developed over time, right? With, you know, we call trolls coming in and people saying things, and we bring our own baggage into the spaces where we are. And so a long day plus somebody who really has no say or sway in your life now is taking it, you know, over the edge.
Right.
I actually heard it a little bit even in this podcast at the very beginning, where you kind of hedged a little bit and you're like, I'm not saying that I'm a pastor, you know. I think that there are probably people in your community that would argue against that. I would almost guarantee that there are some people like, yeah, I mean, like MmamaLlamaFace, that's my pastor. That's where I go for the bulk of my spiritual development and formation. And so I would just encourage you in that moment. I mean, this is why we have you on this podcast, because we think that you're an amazing voice in the space, and that you're an amazing person and that you're doing a lot of great work. And we want to help platform that as best as we can.
Thank you.
Even to the point of, you know, we're inviting you into NCMS.
Yeah,
hey, come be a part
honor.
of this thing that we're making and creating on the fly, building this airplane in the sky. And you're going to be on a panel of, you know, Christian content creators.
I'm really looking
talking
forward
about
to
God
it.
even knows what. Yeah, it's going to be wild. But I think a lot of this stuff is going to be fleshed out a little bit more, and you're going to have time to talk with, you know, some peers that maybe probably almost definitely you've never met in real life, and, you know, kind of be able to go through some of that stuff.
Right.
And so, first of all, thank you for being a part of that at all. Like you answered random emails and Discord messages from strangers on the internet. And so,
which is usually not safe.
It's just not. And you know that.
I do.
And you know that. But I love that. And we're going to be able to have you and your husband come out and be a part of that. And we're
My
just
husband won't be
jazzed
able
out
to
of our
make
mind.
it. So it'll just be me.
No.
I know. It'll just be me because he's going to be, and he's, you know, great support in that. He's going to be with the kids and working. So, he's taking over that whole
The Navy rests for no man. I got you. Yeah.
He's taking over that whole side of, you know, like I take the kids typically and like pick them up and like do all that type of stuff. So he's doing all that and that I would normally be doing, and just to make it so that way I can be there. And because he does know how much it means to me. And honestly, like I definitely have seen it a lot lately. And like the Christian creator is like streams in general, like people just reaching out over like Twitter and stuff. Like I've definitely had stuff like just trying to attack lately. And I think that it's good to have this time, and it's definitely needed this upcoming trip in November to just kind of have that like fellowship and ministry over each other, because I see how the enemy is really threatened by everything we're all trying to do in this space and trying to, you know, get us to stop doing that. So
as well, the enemy should be, because we're making some pretty big waves. We're moving in some pretty big spaces. And so if anybody listening or watching this wants to come and be a part of that, go to ncmsummit.com, November the 8th, 9th, and 10th in Marble Falls, Texas. So if you're listening to it afterwards, you can't come and be a part of it. But the good news is we're going to have all of the breakouts and the keynotes and some extra content up online for you. Just go to ncmsummit.com, get registered, and after the fact, we'll have all that information for you as well. Hey, Mama Llama, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. Where can people find you online? We talk about you being on there.
Yeah.
Where the heck is that?
And thank you so much for having me, by the way. It's seriously an honor to chat with both of you guys and just spend this time chatting about like all of this and inviting me here. It does mean a lot to me. I'm also doing both, you know, Twitch and Kick, and I'm pretty active in my own Discord or on Twitter. I tried to be, at least.
Plug it. Plug all of it.
All of me is just MmamaLlamaFace on everything. So 2 M's, 2 L's with a face.
Two M, two L's for the face. Love it. Well, I want to thank you.
I was thinking to myself, how am I going to remember that? But then you've got it all figured out. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Mama Llama, I want to thank you as well for coming on. And I've said this before. I'll say it again. I'm sure several times throughout NCMS and stuff. I mean, you're an excellent streamer and Fortnite player and creator. All of those things are true and accurate. But I've talked to a great number of people now in this space to hear their stories and their behind the scenes. And there's few people who I have spoken to that have behind the scenes the level of conviction for what they're doing without mixed motives. And I'm not saying we've talked to a lot of people that have mixed motives. I'm just saying, like, with my all of my conversations with you has been such that it was like, nope, like, she's here and she is doing this because this is what she feels like God has asked her to come and do. And there was like, there's almost never this point where for so many of us that we've gone through the dilemma of, is this really what God wants me to do? Am I supposed to be doing this?
Yeah.
You've always seemed to be at least very, very convinced, and that's been very inspiring. Thank you for being on here. If you guys are listening in, please come hang out with us at NCMS and go check out what Mama Llama is doing online. Hang out in some of her streams. If you end up listening to this and you are a pastor or something and you're like curious about why can't I get engagement at my church? Why do people like feel connected online to people that they don't know in person? Are those relationships real? Mama Llama's community is a great one to go and hang out in because you get to see that happen in real time.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so I'm super passionate about that and love what you're doing. So,
I appreciate that a lot. I think like I don't have any convictions with that. Like in how others might struggle in that sense because I so heavily tie it to everything that I went through that was like so deeply rooted and so hard for me over so many years. And just knowing like this is exactly what I was meant to do is try to help people. So I don't have any question about that. I just hope it does. That's all it is. I'm just like, am I doing it? Is this happening? Like, that's more of where my questions lie. Like, is what I'm doing actually helping people? And I always, will question myself at times. And then I hear from the community different things and that it does help them. So thank you.
Amen. Love that. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode, right, Bubba? We're done.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think we did it.
The plane, we didn't. The plane.
MmamaLlamaFace did it. We just
you guys
sat here.
Yeah, we made it.
Thank you for putting everything together. It's very wonderful to be here with both of you. I definitely look forward to meeting you guys here soon too.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
well, that's going to do it for this episode of the NCMU podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. And as always, be sure to come back for next episode.